Welcome in, Browns fans, to a new feature. This will be the first of a 5-part series on the road to the 2020 NFL Draft. And as you know, the Browns already off to a very strong start this offseason in free agency, but it's the draft. This is the big one, the big piece of the puzzle that allows you to create a full roster, infuse it with young talent so that you can build sustained success. Hitting in the draft is key to becoming a championship organization. We know that's what the Browns want to be. Joining me on the road to the draft, as always, is Andrew Gribble. Sir Andrew, this is a big one. It's Andrew Berry's first as the general manager of the Browns, and it starts with a lot of good assets and the number 10 pick. And a lot of people think for the Browns that the position to focus on is offensive tackle. So that's where we will start on our road to the draft, this tackle group.
Yeah, and it's a good year to need a tackle. And there's obviously the big four that we're going to discuss, but this is a tackle group that includes a couple of other players who in other years might have been top of the line early first round picks. And it's good for the Browns, who obviously have a huge need at left tackle. But secondly, it's a good trend because I think the last few years we were beginning to worry. I mean, are the future Joe Thomases of the world out there? Because there were some drafts where there really wasn't a left tackle worth a first-round pick at all. But, these things always go in cycles, and it just so happens that this is the year that it's just loaded with top-end left tackles.
Absolutely. And as we go through the road to the draft series, we'll focus on a different position or a scenario that could unfold in the draft for the things that seem to be the most critical needs for the Browns. And when I was at the Combine, and you were at the Combine as well, and we talked to people there, they said there isn't a better scenario for a GM in his first draft than to have the knowledge that most likely the best player on the board will also be at his biggest position of need. And you mentioned those big four tackles, and they are Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, Jedrick Wills out of Alabama, Mekhi Becton out of Louisville, and Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. And it is very likely that 1, 2, maybe even 3 will be on the board when Andrew Berry has to make that selection at 10. And I got to tell you, it seems like a dream scenario for the Browns just right there, knowing you need to get that heir apparent to Joe Thomas. You've added Jack Conklin on the right side. You feel good about Wyatt Teller and Drew Forbes at right guard. You're locked in with Treader at center and Joel Bitonio, the Pro Bowler, at left guard. Left tackle, that's the whole. This draft in those 4 guys we just named has a ton of talent.
Yeah, and the thing you're hoping is that one of these guys that is still available at number 10 is also someone that fits what Kevin Stefanski wants to do on offense. And I think that's a discussion that Andrew Berry has had with his coaches over the last couple months. What left tackle would make sense in this offense? I think we can make some educated guesses. I think you could make a case for all 4 of these guys fitting in. But if you get in the situation where number 10 comes around and those players are off the board, then we maybe start discussing some of the other guys or a potential move back. But again, these are 4 really, really good left tackles who, it's good that there's really not a consensus on which one is going to come first off the board come on Thursday, April 23rd.
Yeah, and I think, from talking to people around the league, that if you were to get the draft boards of every team in the NFL, there's not only a good chance, in fact, people think it is an absolute certainty that each of these 4, Wills, Wirfs, Becton, and Thomas, will be the number 1 tackle on at least one team's draft board. That's how talented this group is. That's how varied their skill sets are. And you make a good point there. What do you want in that wide zone? And we've listened to Kevin Stefanski talk about the offensive tackle position, what they want. Guys that can move, athletes, and these 4 are all phenomenal athletes. That's why they went and they got Jack Conklin, known for his ability to move. His athleticism makes him one of the best wide zone blockers in the NFL, and they want to complement that. And you think about these guys, they come in different shapes and sizes, but Wirfs, 6'5", 320, ran a 4.85 at the Combine, putting on an athletic show. Wills, some think, is the best natural pass protector in this, but he's only played right tackle. And he did that in high school. He did it in college at Alabama. Can he transition to the left side? And I know a lot of people think it won't be an issue, but it's something to think about. Then you've got Mekhi Becton, who is a mountain of a man, 6'7", 360, and ran a 5'1", 40, moves around like a very fluid athlete and somebody you could think in that wide zone scheme, getting out there, just knocking people over, mauling them. And then there's Andrew Thomas. I mentioned Wills, maybe the best pure pass protector. Thomas would be the other name that gets that distinction. The guy who played in the SEC, has been a left tackle his entire life, didn't allow more than 2 pressures in a single game in the SEC. Oh, and by the way, at Georgia, he knows our guy Nick Chubb. So these 4, a lot of different flavors, but the consensus is all of them are really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We've gotten all these clues about the wide zone offense. Stefanski and his staff have been as transparent as any that we've dealt with in terms of what they want to do offensively and how they're going to do it. But yet, I don't think we've been able to eliminate any of these guys on whether or not they're going to fit or not. And I think you identified something with each of these guys. They're obviously highly regarded, but there's like maybe one little knock on each one of them that makes you raise a question. And I can go one by one. I think Tristan Wirfs, the big question that's been raised by both Joe Thomas and John Greco, is he maybe a long-term fixture at guard? I think Daniel Jeremiah said that he would maybe be an all-pro player at guard, and tackle might not be the most natural fit in the NFL, even though he's only played tackle. So that's one there. You mentioned the Wills thing. Moving from right tackle to left tackle is no joke. Even though many think he'll be able to do it, it still would be a transition, especially if you're looking to bring someone in and plop him in at left tackle from game one, like the Browns might be hoping to do with this player. Mekhi Becton is obviously an athletic freak, but there's a reason why he kind of came on late in the scene. There's some bad tape out there from his sophomore season, so you're wondering if he's really overcome that, and that's something that he can do. And then Andrew Thomas, similarly, some not great tape with balance. And just some wondering if he really is the guy you want to take at number 10. But again, all 4 are really good, and I think we're picking nits with some quality players that hopefully for the Browns, their number 1 guy is still on the board at number 10.
Man, I think that brings us into the dream scenario here, and the dream scenario for the Browns is exactly that the number 1 tackle on the Browns board is available to them at number 10. And you look through those first 9 picks and you say to yourself, okay, who are teams that could be taking an offensive tackle, that could take one of these tackles and potentially our top tackle off of the board? I think you start with the Giants at number 4. I think you now look at the Arizona Cardinals as well at number 8. Now that they've acquired DeAndre Hopkins via trade, a lot of people thought they'd go to receiver. Now maybe they go tackle for their young quarterback. And you never know what Carolina's going to do. You never know what Jacksonville's going to do. They pick at 7 and 9 respectively. But it's hard to envision a scenario where all 4 are gone. But I think it's easy to envision a scenario where only 1's gone, 2 are gone, or 3 are off the board, depending on how things go in front of the Browns. All right, now we get to the point where we tell you what we think is going to happen here on the road to the draft as it comes to the tackle position. And I would say, barring a surprise like Isaiah Simmons or Jeffrey Okudah maybe being on the board at 10 that could at least cloud things, it seems to me, I do expect, Gribbs, and I don't know if you do as well, but the Browns will come out of the first round with a left tackle. And I would say, as we sit here today, it's more likely that they would pick one at number 10 than not.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where with the way this virtual draft is going to work, I don't know if that's going to make teams more reluctant to make trades. Is it going to increase the chances of making trades because there's not as many voices in the room potentially with getting these things done? But yeah, I think whenever you're talking about the draft, it seems like we spend months predicting things and going through all these scenarios. Usually it's the most boring option that ends up happening. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. The Browns are in a good spot at number 10. I imagine that of the top 4, I think the safe bet is that there will be 2 of the 4 available with the Browns at 10. And odds are one of those players will make some sense for what the Browns want to do. And I think that is probably the safest prediction and what's been projected by most people since January.
I couldn't agree more. And I got to tell you, if that does come to fruition, you think about this Browns offense, you talk about pieces of the puzzle. The only one missing right now in your starting lineup on offense is that left tackle. Envision this. You've got a quarterback in Baker Mayfield. You've got running backs Chubb and Hunt. You bring in Andy Janovich, the fullback, to come fill that role in this offense. Your 2 tight end set, it's got Austin Hooper, a 2-time Pro Bowler, and David Njoku, a former first-rounder. Your 2 receivers are Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. And now your line would be this pick at number 10, an elite left tackle prospect, a Pro Bowler in Joel Bitonio, a guy who should be a Pro Bowler in J.C. Treader, a young right guard in Teller or Forbes, and then an all-pro right tackle in Jack Conklin. And you say to yourself, man, this could be exciting. And clearly, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have been working together on this plan, bringing in guys that fit exactly what they want to do. And we know, as we said at the top, the draft is a huge piece of the puzzle in your overall roster construction so that you can build that championship team and you find guys at premium positions like left tackle, where you don't have to pay them like you would if they were veterans and Pro Bowlers with the upside that you hope to get out of the draft.
Yeah, and I think Andrew Berry talked about it on a conference call recently. I think when it comes to immediate production and upside, you're making an investment. I mean, this is a first-round pick that, if things work out right, is spending at least 5 years with you when you pick up that fifth-year option, and then you move on to an extension after that. So that's why I think it obviously helps if someone is plug and play for this situation, because the Browns just have that one big need at left tackle. But again, it goes back to our Austin Jackson discussion. This is not just about 2020. This is about helping now and also into the future, because we've seen too many first-round picks go by the wayside here, and you not really make the most of that investment. And I think that's the key, is getting the most out of these players, not just in the first year, but through the duration of their first contract.
Absolutely. So we are going to be doing this leading up to the draft. We're going to break down different positions, ones that we think are ones the Browns will be targeting on draft day. And then we'll go through all the scenarios we think could unfold with picks 10, 41, etc. in our final stop on the road to the draft. So thank you so much for joining us. For Andrew Gribble, I'm Nathan Zegura, saying we'll see you again on the road to the 2020 NFL Draft.